Hi, I'm Dr. Doug Weiss, and welcome to our YouTube channel. Listen, we have a great topic today, balancing your brain. Have you ever felt like you're out of balance and not know why? Maybe you tried different things to figure out how to get yourself back in balance, and all along there's something going on inside of you that you don't know about, and it's called your brain. That is today's topic, and I have a world-renowned expert with me today, Lee Gerdes. He is the founder and developer of Cereset, and he's going to help us understand brain balancing. So stay tuned. Now, if you have not subscribed to our channel, please click that little subscribe button. We have hundreds of videos that can help you in your life. And also, if you have a question, please send it to us and we will try to do our best to get right back to you as soon as possible. So stay tuned for balancing your brain. Welcome back. Listen, we have a great topic today and a great guest, Lee Gerdes. Tell me about yourself and what you do.
Well, I'm the CEO and founder, so that means I'm sort of the
guy.
Yeah. And you know that guy.
Yeah,
you do a little bit of everything, don't you?
Yes.
And but in general, the technology is one which non-invasively can help the brain to reformulate itself so that left and right hemispheres can balance. That's the most important part of it. Well,
that sounds awesome. Now, I've experienced Cereset, so I'm a little biased, okay?
Okay.
And it's been really great for me personally, clearer focus. I call it a defrag. It just feels like everything works better.
That's a good way
when I'm done.
Explain it.
But what got you on this journey? Because this isn't where you started. So tell us about where you started and how you got to this, because your story is inspiring. And I think it'll help our audience understand why you got to this place.
Well, I was in San Francisco. I was working in a program for HIV-affected people at a church. I was locking a gate, and I was approached by 4 youth. One had a baseball bat. And they were sort of gangbangers, I guess, and trying to make a score. And I happened to be the target. And from that, I had a mild traumatic brain injury and post-traumatic stress. I worked on that a lot for a number of years, for 8 years. And I couldn't get help. I mean, I went everywhere, I did everything. And in that process, I learned how to I started to research some for myself, and people that have mild traumatic brain injury are in dramatic kind of need. And sometimes they don't even know the need they're in. That's how bad the need is. And so I was lucky somehow, or I believe I was inspired, but...
Sure, I believe that.
I found a way, and I was a technologist, and my whole world was about data representation. And so...
Not that exciting, but go ahead.
Yeah.
Right?
It was.
It was, okay.
Amazon, Doug.
Okay, fair enough.
Amazon, if you like this book, you'll also like these.
There you go.
Yeah,
that's
I helped those, help build that technology.
Oh, that's funny. Go ahead.
And so, but I was needing to find out what was wrong with me. And so I hacked together some major software, some basic software, and looked at my brain patterns. And I found that left and right hemispheres, which I knew from reading should be more symmetrical, were not symmetrical at all.
Okay, that's a big deal.
And so I started measuring them every day at about the same time. And I took about 30 or 40 of these measurements, and then found out when I was feeling better, I was less asymmetrical. Which means I generally had less stress. When I was feeling worse, I was more asymmetrical.
Okay.
And so I needed a way to help the brain to find itself. Now, I'm a man of faith. And so based on that, I believe that God created us in a way that made a lot of sense for our well-being and our own healing.
Absolutely.
Right? So I didn't want an intervention. I wanted instead a support system for the brain. And that's what I did when I looked at the middle ranges, not the left and not the right, not the high, not the low, but sort of the middle, and found a dominant frequency, and I started to play a tone for each dominant frequency in the middle.
Wow.
And I did it then. It's archaic now, but I did it then, and it took me probably 60 or 80 sessions, and I was able to sleep for the first time in 9 years.
Oh, wow.
I was able to function in a way that was be more present. And in being present, I could also be helpful. My handle wasn't short. In other words, I didn't fly off the handle as easily.
Right.
And I could think more clearly for longer periods of time. I could think before, but only for short periods. So, I thought that it was just time. And then I was lucky. But then I started using the technology for other people who had some problems. And then that was in 2000, and here we are 21 years later.
Yeah, it's great technology, and it's really very super helpful, and I really believe in it. Now, give me maybe a balanced brain and unbalanced brain. Give me some of those characteristics or differences.
In a balanced brain, you can listen clearly. And even if it's not emotionally pleasing for you, you don't necessarily fly off the handle.
Okay, so you're emotionally more stable.
Much more.
Okay, that's great.
In a balanced brain, you will think and consider alternatives.
That's helpful.
In an unbalanced brain, you've got one path usually, or very few.
Yeah. Now, I see that with my clients who are stuck because of the trauma that we deal with. We'll talk about that a little bit later, but the women are genuinely stuck, and by Friday, they're actually more neuroplastic.
Yeah.
They can actually consider staying with their husband.
Yes.
Okay, stuff like that. Keep going.
Right. So, but all said and done, sleep is key. If you can't sleep, your brain can't be refreshed. And when you sleep really deeply, and the REM's really, deep and long enough, what happens is the brain cleans itself, just like, as you mentioned earlier, defragging a computer. It brings the pieces together and it lines up. It throws away that which it doesn't need, and it keeps the stuff that it does. So your middle and long-term memory actually improves a lot. Okay,
that explains a lot, because when I did Cereset, and I've not had many clients do Cereset, we have it here in our office at the counseling center, and I find that they do report better sleep. I've never slept better than after Cereset, ever in my life, ever. I mean, it's so deep, and it's just like, wow. I mean, you feel like you took a cool bath or something. Yeah. It's so good. And many of my clients have reported the same thing, that even after the first time sometimes, it's like, wow, I've never slept that good. And so you're telling me that that's like one of the primary reasons, like, this thing is really helpful.
That's core.
Okay, good. So if you get a good night's sleep, that's a good thing. Okay, yep. So people who don't get good sleep, though, they're probably struggling with anxiety, more emotional imbalance, cognitively kind of depressed or distorted or not clear and stuff like that. So this can really help. Now, what went into the whole creation of Cereset, the research, the studies, the funding? Like, how did that all? That's a big deal.
Well, once we got started, then my question was, I had put away some money. I was thinking, I could kind of retire early.
Right.
If I needed to. Go play some serious golf or whatever. And then I couldn't. I couldn't. The only thing I could do is respond in gratitude because my life was hell, and then it became like heaven.
That's great.
And so I had to share it. And so when I shared it, I don't know, I sometimes think about the story of Joseph, in the Bible, where he had all these problems and was taken to Egypt, and then they brought his brothers who had tried to kill him before and throw him in the well. And his brothers said, uh-oh, we're in big trouble. This is Lee's edit of the text. And Joseph said, you meant it for evil. God meant it for good. And that's what I got from this whole scenario.
No, I've met many gurus type people from different topics and stuff like that. And many of the stories it's a hero epic story. It starts in
Yep.
tragedy. Getting beat up, that's a tragedy.
Yep.
But what you brought out of that, the medicine you brought out of that is huge. And, hopefully that's a story for many of you out there, no matter what you're dealing with, that you can actually turn your pain and your trauma into medicine. And you can be a helping hand and heart or information to another person. And so if you know someone who's struggling with, stuff we're talking about, share this with them for sure. Now, we're in a big military town here in Colorado Springs, okay?
Yeah.
We have an Army base, an Air Force Academy, the Air Force base. Like, we got military, like tens and tens and tens of thousands of them. But we have lots of PTSD, okay?
Right.
And I know that Cereset there's been some research on that or some stuff you've dealt with that. Give me some of that for our military people and for just people in general. Like, I deal with ladies who've been cheated on and lied to and infidelity. They find out their husband's got pornography. They go through a form of PTSD as well.
Definitely.
And that's why Cereset is so powerful for our audience. But give us some background on that or some information on that.
PTSD, if you take, we did a clinical trial for active military who had PTSD at Wake Forest School of Medicine on Cereset, the legacy system. And what they found out was that even though these men were, and about 80% were men, 20% were women though, so it's about 80-20, they had different brain patterns, considerably different. One was left side dominant, which would have meant parasympathetic, or the foot was stuck on the brake.
Okay.
One was sympathetic on the right side dominant, which meant the foot was stuck on the gas. And so it's just like a car. We do gas, brake, gas, brake, gas, brake, and everything goes along fine. But when it gets too much or too long, in terms of the stressors, then we, get stuck. Maybe the fight or flight gets stuck, or when the fight or flight can't handle it. If you can't run away and you can't fight back, some of your clients will be there. They're in a situation they can't do either one.
Right.
And then they go into a freeze response, so they start to numb. Freeze response is more apt to be depressive. So that's a left side dominance. But for PTSD, it was about 40, 60, 45, 55. Now 45% were strong on the left. They were parasympathetic. 55% were strong on the right, sympathetic.
But either way, you're imbalanced.
And
that's the problem.
But the problem then is, when we try to work with PTSD, we often try to work with it from the perspective that it's fight or flight. And it's not always.
It could be freeze.
It can be freeze. So the guy that's in fight or flight, he's the guy that's kicking in doors and taking out the bad guys. The guy that's in freeze just lost his buddy. IED goes off, he runs across the road, his buddy's blown up, he's taken fire. His brain flips into a freeze response to allow him to operate there.
Yeah, right.
Your client, maybe, she has to operate. Maybe she has a family to care for.
Absolutely, exactly.
And guess what happens? She goes into freeze.
Right.
Her brain puts her there so she can function.
Right.
But it takes its toll.
Yeah, no, I see it every week. I do, I really do.
It takes its toll.
It does. And what I see is also that the opposite is true, that when they actually do the Cereset treatment, and it's not hard. I mean, they sit in a chair, they listen to sound.
Right.
Most of them fall asleep, They don't have to talk about their abuse or their problems or their husband or anything that's going on in their life. And they go through this throughout the whole week, for about 4 or 5 sessions. And I find that the light bulbs come on. They're able to start thinking more clearly. They're more focused. They have less depressive symptoms. They are able to get some good sleep. So, give me some examples of a balanced brain. These people, no matter what their circumstances, our general audience, and they do Cereset. How are they different? What do they generally experience? We get a lot of positive feedback, but you've been doing this for much longer than we have. What are some of the maybe stories or examples of a balanced brain? A person who comes back.
She'll be able to start making better choices.
Okay.
All the way along in her life. Better choices in diet, better choices in mates.
That's good.
Better choices in responses. Better choices sometimes in leaving if she has to.
Yeah, absolutely.
Whatever she has to do.
Right.
She'll be able to make choices. but she'll make them out of a position of power, not weakness.
That's a good thing.
And therefore she'll make them more lovingly.
Mm-hmm.
And even if it's a split, it won't be as bad.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
No, she'll be able to recover because she won't be in flight or fight.
Exactly.
Right.
The anger won't emerge because that's what she needs. If she's in freeze, she needs that anger to move.
Oh, that's a really important point. So the ladies who are stuck in anger, it might not be a psychological thing. It might be a neurological thing.
Absolutely.
And this is what I've been trying to explain to my partner betrayal trauma ladies, especially for the ladies, because as counselors, we've been doing this for over 30 years like you have. For a decade or two, we'd run into the same lady who was just staying angry and staying angry and staying angry. And no matter how much counseling she got, even if she got on an antidepressant, it didn't seem to make any difference.
Right.
And once we start bringing Cereset into our office, that seemed to have cleared, we call it the stuck lady. She, it happened 30 years ago, but she's, and this helps her go, woo, and actually get, it's almost like, I grew up on the East Coast. When you get stuck in snow, you always keep cardboard in the back of your trunk, right? So you put that cardboard under the tire and woo, and then you start moving. And to me, usually by Wednesday, a lot of the ladies, they start being able to start moving again in their thinking and able to become more neuroplastic, more clear, more hopeful. I literally can see it in their eyes that their eyes are different.
That's why it's so important that they have support. Because
totally.
Because now that they can see it, they can be helped to be guided.
Absolutely.
They couldn't be before.
Yes, that's well said. Well said.
And so you play absolutely a key role here. Cereset can take the brain so it can function really well. We know that with Navy SEALs. We know that with military. We know that with law enforcement. We did clinical trials on. We have 900 people through clinical trials, right?
Wow.
So we know that Cereset can do that. But what it can't do, or what we don't do, we stop right at that door.
Right.
What it doesn't do is then, once you get the table put back, how do you set it?
Right.
And that's the question, because many people in this broken world have trauma from the get-go.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And because of that trauma, they have never known an opportunity to set the table.
Right.
I mean, we've worked with drug court.
Mandated people, sure.
We worked with low socioeconomic group, under stress all the time.
Yep.
Same thing, basically. That's long-term trauma. We worked with a lot of people who've had histories of when they were a child of being abused.
Absolutely.
And that's a pattern that they then develop, right? In your world, it can be a history of being abandoned when they're really, really young, and then being violated when they're older. And that generally is, on your world, turns out to be a diagnosis of a borderline personality disorder.
That can happen for sure.
In my world, that's
just an imbalanced brain.
That's just an imbalanced brain.
Right.
There's low on this side, there's high on this side, okay?
Right.
And we work to try to bring those back together, but that does not necessarily. It gives them the ability to
put them on the rails. Now we got to go somewhere.
Precisely, better said.
Yeah, and I think that I want to thank you all for watching this today. And it's so important if you've experienced any kind of trauma. I'm a psychologist. Counseling is great, but there is a reality that neurologically you could have gotten off of balance. And I strongly encourage you, call the office, get some information on the Cereset, and see if you can spend 5 days and really get this thing settled. And what's cool, Lee, is they get this chart on Monday,
right?
And it shows, here's where your brain is. Right. Okay, actually, before I came in, we have a conference this weekend, and one of the ladies was doing her tune-up, and she was so happy to show me her paper. She goes, "Doug, look at all my green," right? Because she's moved over to this side because she was so far over here before.
Right.
And so it's actually factually shown to you on Monday what your brain looks like, and on Friday. And I've seen so many of these reports, and I can tell you, I've never seen one stay the same. I've never seen one on Monday look like it looked on Friday, because they show me this, and their points and their scores change so dramatically, sometimes 30, 40, 50 points. It's amazing. So this is something I really believe in. And if it's something where you feel like you've had trauma or stuff in your life and you just feel stuck, or in some cases, you just want to have the maximum brain. Like me, that's me. At this point, I'm not like dealing with trauma and abuse and all that stuff. I dealt with that many years ago. I've done Cereset. That was helpful. Now I do it to make me run faster, smarter, harder, and keep my brain defragged. And I've written over 50 books at this point. And some people ask me how I do that. Well, one of my secrets is every once in a while I find myself down in the hall, sitting in a chair, doing the Cereset. So I really encourage you, whether it's getting over something or just maximizing your human potential, your brain being in balance is probably one of the most important things. So if you know someone who could use this, share this. If you haven't subscribed, subscribe. If you have a question, ask a question. We're going to do a couple more interviews with Lee, so you can look those up as well. Thank you so much for watching today.